So we're going through the last page of the theory, which is ear training. And I'm dividing this into three sections this lesson. The first section, I'm going to be going through and explaining what each question is about and giving you a little bit of input on how to approach it. Second question, we're actually going to take this test, and then the third section we'll go through the answers. So the first one, we're telling the difference between major or minor. This is easy for most students, but let me know if anyone needs extra help with this. So I'm going to pick, how about I do this? So of course this song is always played in major. If it was played in minor, it actually sounds nice in minor, I have to admit. So that's what the first question is, telling the difference between major or minor. Let's go on to the second one. This is probably unfamiliar to many of you, the words here, mordent and turn. So there are several kinds of ornament. The one that we hear most often is a trill. So that's a trill on a C. It usually starts the note above. It depends on the period that the music is written in. Sometimes in romantic music, we start on the note. So that would be a trill. That's not either of the choices here, of course. The mordent is a three-note ornament usually, where you start on the note, you dip down and then back. So this is, I'm playing a mordent on a C, I'm playing C, D, C. So that's called a mordent. And then a turn, we start above the note usually, we go down, we go below the note and back to the note. So in total that was 4 notes, right? One of my favorite examples of that, if I do a turn on each note of the A minor chord, in the classical period they loved using these to connect one note to another one, and then connecting this to there. So that's an example of a turn. I'm going to give you a great example of the mordent. Most of you have heard this piece, I think. So the first notes there were a mordent. So it's written as in the score it's written as an A with the mordent sign. So meaning that you play the note, you flip down to the lower neighbor. That means the note right down from it and then back. So that's a mordent. Number 3, recognition of a major or minor chord progression. So as part of our technique, we have been practicing these each year that we do Certificate of Merit. And you always are doing something like this. That would be an example in major. That was E flat major. Let me do E flat minor. Again, it's fairly easy to tell the difference between them. If anyone needs help with that, let us know. Now here we get to something more interesting. Recognition of major and perfect intervals. So, of course, there are other kinds. This is a level 5 test. They're not expecting you to tell the difference between major and minor intervals, and they're not going to give you any diminished or augmented intervals. So they're only giving you major and perfect. Remember that perfect intervals are the 4th, the 5th, and the octave only. So, to tell the difference between a major third and a major sixth, of course, try to hear like how much space is in between the notes. There's a third. You could fill in the step in the middle in your head and count 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to start the counting note as 1 when you do intervals. The sixth, you can hear, it's a wider interval. Most of you know Chopin, a great piano composer. This wonderful nocturne is a good example of a major sixth. Begins with that interval. So I like to use that example. There are other pieces that are helpful to think of in terms of some of these intervals. Let's look at the next example. It's going to be choosing between a perfect fourth and a major seventh. One of my students was telling me this begins with a perfect fourth. Here comes the bride. So you could use that as an example of a perfect fourth, if that's helpful for you. We're actually going to hear these notes played together, of course. You hear them sound something like that. The perfect fourth is a bit dissonant. To my ear, it wants to resolve down there. It wants to resolve to a third. It could go this way too, of course. Resolve to a third like that. Some students have trouble distinguishing the fourth from the fifth. Let's look at that for a minute. It's a perfect fifth. There's a feeling of repose. Like it doesn't feel like it has to resolve. It sounds, you have to say it sounds a bit incomplete. It sounds like it needs something in between to make it a real chord. Here's the perfect fifth. To many ears it sounds a little bit hollow. Those who have played string instruments, you tune your instrument by using fifths. These are perfect fifths. Of course, if anyone here plays the guitar, you tune the guitar mostly in fourths, so these are perfect fourths. There's a third in the guitar, and then another fourth. And then if anyone plays ukulele, it's like the top 4 string guitar. Okay, so it would be perfect fourth, major third, another perfect fourth. Let's look at the question 5, the different kinds of scales. So of course there are several kinds of minor scale. Really useful to be able to distinguish the different kinds by listening to them. So I'm going to go through each kind of the minor scale. So remember that the natural minor sounds like that. The interval at the top is a whole step, whereas when we do the harmonic minor, it changes here. The interval at the top was a half step. Also, the interval between 6th and 7th is a strange sounding interval, an augmented second. Kind of a an Eastern sounding interval, you might say, or let's say, to be more precise, an exotic sounding interval. And then of course here is a melodic minor scale. Coming down, of course, is the same as a natural minor. Melodic minor is the smoothest sounding. It doesn't have any strange intervals anywhere in it. Question 6, recognition of meter. Meter is, it basically means the same as time signature, let's say. The arrangement of beats into groups. So for instance, if you're hearing 2/4, you're going to be hearing a strong beat followed by a less strong beat, back to the strong beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So 1 will be heavy, 2 will be somewhat lighter. If you have notes in between those beats, they'll be lighter again. How about I do? It begins on a pickup. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, like that. Now 3/4 is of course still the 1 is a heavy beat, 2 and 3 are lighter, so it's going to sound like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Number 7, recognition of tempos. They're giving you a lively tempo and a slow tempo. One way that I think of this, when you're practicing learning these tempo marks, say them either fast or slow depending on what they mean. So for instance, if you practice saying allegro, vivace, vivo, allegretto, presto, say those fast, and then the slower ones, practice saying them slow. Adagio, largo. And of course, andante is kind of in the middle. We call it a walking tempo. Number 8, recognition of major or minor triad. So they'll probably play these for you in root position usually. Major and minor. Of course, if they're played in other inversions, they have a slightly different sound. Remember that inversion refers to what note is on the bottom. Okay, so I was playing these in root position. This is still root position. I'm playing an A flat chord. The bottom note is A flat. If I do this, what inversion is that? Root position. I'm playing an A flat chord. The bottom note is A flat. If I play it like this, what inversion is it? Root position. I'm playing the same notes of an A flat chord. I've got an A flat at the bottom. Now if I do this, first inversion, because I'm playing the same chord, the bottom note is the third of the chord, the C. Second inversion. Okay? That's unrelated to this test, of course. At the higher levels, you are supposed to know how to recognize the different inversions. And then the cadences. So there are 2 here. I'm going to go over the 3 cadences that you know. So you're seeing a series of 4 chords for each cadence. The first 2 chords are to help you to figure out, your ear has to know what key you're in. So that's why it's not giving you just the cadence. It's giving you 2 chords, and then the last chords are the cadence. So for instance, for the authentic cadence, the cadence is 5/7 to 1. The 1 and the 4 are just preparing you to listen to it. So I just wanted to clarify that because sometimes students get confused there. Same with the half cadence. The actual cadence part of it is the last two chords, 1 to 5/7. These two cadences sound so completely different to each other. So no one's going to get this wrong if they understand what each cadence is, because the authentic cadence sounds very finished. I'm going to pick another key. How about F sharp major? 5/7 to 1. I think you'll agree that sounds somewhat complete, somewhat finished. If I do the half cadence, I'm going to do the same key. Sounds quite incomplete, the half cadence, because it's not finishing on the tonic, it's finishing on the dominant. Remember that a plagal cadence is 4 to 1. At this level, it's unlikely they would ask you to identify that, to be able to tell the difference between that and the authentic cadence, because they both finish on 1. Plagal cadence might sound like this. You hear it at the end of a hymn very often. 4 to 1. So that's a plagal cadence. Let me do a couple more intervals before we finish this section. So, because I realized that I only did the ones that are on the test here. I'm going to start on F, major second. Sounds somewhat dissonant, doesn't it? Major third, perfect fourth. Again, it sounds like it wants to resolve, wants to go there. Perfect fifth, sounds very stable. Sounds a bit like two pieces of bread that doesn't have any peanut butter in it. It doesn't have either that or that inside it. Major sixth, and I think I mentioned earlier, great example of a major sixth there. Now, major seventh, that's what it sounds like. It's actually quite pretty if you put a chord with it. We use this in jazz a lot. There's another one. Very pretty sound. It's different than a dominant 7, of course. A dominant 7 has the minor 7th in it. And I'm not going to do the minor intervals at the moment. And on your ear training at this level, you're not expected to do the augmented and diminished intervals. The one that you need to know about, though, is this interval here. Now, just hearing it, you can't tell whether that's an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. So the generic term for it is a tritone. In England, the word tone means whole step. So tri, of course, means 3. So the reason we call it a tritone is 1, 2, 3 whole steps. So tritone is another word for that. So we're about to take the test, so make sure that you have the level 5 2012 test there, and turn to the last page and have a pencil or something to mark your answers, and we'll go through them afterwards, okay? Question 1, recognition of major or minor in a 4-measure phrase. Question 2, you can go back and play that again if anyone needs to hear it again. Recognition of an ornament, mordent or turn. Question 3, recognition of a major or minor chord progression. Question 4, recognition of major and perfect intervals. Here is example 1. I'll play it again. Example 2. Question 5. Here is number 1. I'll play it again. And here is number 2. Play it again. Question 6. Here's number 1. I'll play it again. Sorry, I got bored and played it faster. Same time signature though. Here's the next one. Choosing between 3/4 and 4/4 in this one. I'll play it again. Number 7, recognition of tempo, vivo or largo. Number 8, recognition of major or minor triad. I'll do it again. Last question, the cadence. I'll do it again. So let's go over the answers. If anyone wants to hear anything again, just go back on the video. I won't play them again right now. So question 1, example 1 is major. Example 2 is minor. Question 2, I played a turn. I didn't play a mordent, right? Didn't play that, but Number 3, I played a minor chord progression, so number 3, minor. Number 4, I played first the major sixth from Chopin. Number 2, I played the perfect fourth from, it's actually by Wagner, that famous wedding march. Wagner, not one of the composers that we play a lot of on the piano, because he's really an opera composer, but wonderful composer from the late part of the 19th century. Number 5, so I played harmonic minor and then harmonic minor. So hopefully I didn't trick anyone. That can happen on these tests. Sometimes students will sometimes think that there's going to be one of each, right? But it's not always going to be like that. We're getting to level 5, and at the higher levels, they're going to maybe throw in some trickier things like that. Number 6, number 1 was 2/4, and number 2 was 3/4. Number 7, the tempo, I played Largo. I played some Handel. Really wonderful Baroque composer, born the same year as Bach and Scarlatti. Really amazing year for music, 1685. Number 8, I played a minor triad. I think I played a B-flat minor. More Chopin. And then for the last question, I played the half cadence. I think I played an A-flat major. Of course, that sounds very incomplete, the half cadence. It sounds like it needs to go on. You won't hear many pieces end on a half cadence. So let me, just to finish this, let me play an authentic cadence. That sounds more finished, right? Okay, so if you could send this in to me, I'm interested to see how people did on this. I think the total number of points would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 out of 13 would be a perfect score. Probably most of you got that, I would guess. But send it in so we can take a look at that.